think we should go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone to the CalNonprofits Leveraging Employer Student Loan Programs with Highway Benefits. This is a benefit that we've been really excited about to implement at CalNonprofits and believe that this is a great resource for our community. So we're excited to bring on our team from Highway Benefits as well as some folks from CalNonprofits to speak about the program and its impact for employees and employers. Now, just a little bit of housekeeping, as we usually do. Looks like everyone is well-versed in using the chat feature, but we also have a Q&A button, and this is going to be where you can ask questions during the presentation. And while we do have a dedicated time at the end of the webinar to address these questions, we might be able to type some responses during the webinar. But in the case that we don't get to answer all of your questions during the webinar, we will follow up with them. I'll make a running list of them and include them in the slides and the copy of the webinar that everyone will be receiving following the presentation. There's also a closed captioning button. It's the CC button right down at the bottom of your screen. You can click that and enable closed captioning so that you can follow along via text. And just also a little bit about CalNonprofits for those of you who aren't so familiar with our organization. So we engage in a variety of endeavors, mainly policy and advocacy, education, and data and research. The data and research portion is something that I'd like to highlight just briefly, and that this presentation and this benefit is a product of one of our recent projects called the Student Debt Project. And we recently had a 2024 Nonprofit Student Debt Survey report that we've released. And in this report, we tabulated quite a bit of really interesting and compelling data about the state of student debt in the nonprofit sector, how it affects workers, how it affects employees, and some steps that you can take to help alleviate that student debt burden from your employees. So with that, I would like to bring on our two panelists today. First, we have the CEO of CalNonprofits, Jeff Green, and also the co-founder and CEO of Highway Benefits, Mick McLafferty. Jeff, I'll let you take it away from here and get started.
Great. Thank you, Robert. Well, welcome. I'll add my welcome to you all. Thanks for joining us this morning. I want to just say a few words of introduction about why we thought this was important to bring to the broader community and why we scheduled this very webinar and the other things we're doing at the moment. So to start with, Robert mentioned, as you all know, CalNonprofits is here as your lobby advocate voice, talking not only to legislators, but to the broader sector, really building the strength of nonprofits, looking out for the challenges that we all share in common, and of course, trying to bring some resources to the nonprofit sector as a whole. And among those, and this is no secret to any of you here today, but the sustainability and the general health and well-being of our nonprofit workforce has become an increasingly larger part of the conversation over the last few years. And that goes back to a whole range of issues, some of them with very deep roots, decades old, around compensation not keeping up. Some of it more COVID related, with frontline workers being relied on heavily and yet not being fully supported as they need to be, and issues of burnout and such. So one of the things we're always looking for are ways to bolster the health of the sector, but a big part of that does come down to compensation and benefits. As some of you know, we're a partner in an annual set of benefits surveys and compensation surveys. In fact, the new one is coming out for 2025 very shortly, the new survey. They usually get released in March, April. And so we ask questions in that about what are the needs for our nonprofit friends and allies around the state. So one of the things we began over a decade ago, and I actually at the time was one of the advisors to the work because I was working in the education philanthropy nonprofit world, was this question of student debt. And it was back in 2015, 2016 that the CalNonprofits at the time did our first survey, asking people what impact debt had, how much they carried into the sector, what that meant for their work, sustainability, and lifestyle. And that's now a decade old nearly. And as Robert said, and he's leading this work for us at CalNonprofits, we just recently in 2024, in the spring and early summer, did a follow-up survey. You'll hear a little bit more about that and what we found. But it will be no surprise that debt is an increasingly large and heavy burden in multiple ways. The number of 1.7 trillion has certainly been talked about a lot, and that's the total student debt carried in the country. The current federal administration has done some things to try to relieve some of those. Some have been successful, others have been blocked in the courts. And so this ongoing question of how do we handle student debt? But the intersection of the debt challenge plus the compensation challenge is really where we work. And so in doing that, we're looking always for things to promote as solutions. One that you've certainly heard from us about over the years is the public service loan forgiveness program. And that's something that's been around for quite a while. Unfortunately, a relatively small number of individuals and organizations are actually even aware of it or promote it. So we talk about that a bit. But there was a new bright spot during COVID, and that was a new benefit that was introduced at the federal level. It was an extension of what was known as Section 127 for you HR policy people out there. And this was the ability of an employer to actually pay directly to pay down the debt of an employee, a worker within an organization in a tax-free way from a federal perspective. So rather than it being part of the compensation that an employee would receive, and then they would, of course, have the tax liability that goes with it, this was an opportunity for an employer to recognize the student debt that staff carried into the workplace and do something directly about it. So in our search for solutions, my colleague, Robert, who you just heard from, found that this was something that was emerging, just a few years old, and started to look for who out in the field actually was doing this, and particularly was offering this benefit to the nonprofit sector. And that is how and where we found the folks at Highway. So Mick is going to tell you a bit about that as the co-founder of Highway Benefits. But I want to be clear that before we went this far, we did something very intentionally, which is that we investigated this as a benefit for ourselves and actually implemented it this fall. So we now at CalNonprofits offer this to all staff in the organization. So if they are carrying student debt and come into CalNonprofits and join the team here, this is one of the benefits that they have access to. So we have made that offer of $100 per month to pay down directly for anyone carrying student debt in the organization. So what I want to say about that is that it's a relatively inexpensive benefit from the perspective of the employer, and speaking as someone who is responsible for the budget, and some of you on this call certainly are as well, that is important. So what can we afford to do to lift up, treat well, and otherwise support our staff and our teams? And this is one that we believe is something we can do, is relatively low cost to do, and yet has a big impact for the staff members that receive it. We do it in a way where it is offered the same amount on a monthly basis for anyone, regardless of how much student debt they carry in. Mick will tell you all about the different permutations and averages and the data that's out there about who is taking advantage of this. But we do know that this is new enough that relatively few people are aware of it in the sector. And we thought today it was a good time to do this. We chose Highway because they clearly could work with the nonprofit sector, especially small scale organizations. They built that capacity intentionally. So we think we found the best partners for this, which is why we invited them to do this call with us. And I'll leave it there. You'll hear more about what it means and how it works in the coming days. But we wanted to introduce it, but not before we walked our own talk and said that we wanted to offer it as well. There's also a membership benefit, which we'll make sure you understand for those of you that are CalNonprofits members already, which I assume will be most of the crew on this call. And that is that we have worked out an arrangement with Highway so that you have a better access to introducing this benefit should you so choose. So with no further ado, I'm going to pass the mic and the baton to Mick, and thank you all.
Thanks, Jeff. That was a plus intro. Appreciate all the background, and yeah, we're all of our customers are our favorite customers. So today, right now, you're our favorite customer. Yeah, we do appreciate the work you guys are doing, and excited to chat with everyone today. And just a bit of a high level, what we're planning on doing is we have some slides we're going to run through here, kind of walking through what we do at Highway, how we kind of function as a business, and then also kind of touching on specifics of nonprofits and why this is very relevant to your specific industry. I'll walk through the benefit in more detail, how it works, if you do work with Highway, what it looks like, et cetera. And then we do have some time reserved at the end for questions. So also feel free to write in the chat if you do have questions as I'm going through anything. I'll try to address as many of them as I can, hopefully, in my kind of talk here. But yeah, I think we'll kick things off here. So just brief background on Highway. Jeff mentioned I am the CEO, one of the founders of Highway Benefits. Really, what we do is we provide a few benefits. This call today specifically is about student loan repayment as a benefit. So companies can actually contribute money directly to their employees' student loans, and it's tax-free money for the employee. It's a write-off for the business. So we at Highway, if you want to jump to the next slide, just as a high level, or sorry, the slide beyond that, we really are a one-stop shop for all your student loan benefits. We help you as an organization set this benefit up. We make sure that the system is fully automated and seamless. So once you're working with Highway, all of your employees every month will receive extra contributions directly into their loan servicer account. And you as the organization, we like to say it's pretty set it and forget it. So once you sign with Highway, you don't ever need to talk to us again if you don't want to, but we do love to talk with our clients. So next slide, if you will, I'll kind of walk through high level of student debt. So generally speaking, why is this important? Jeff mentioned it, there's about $1.7 trillion of student debt. For those of you who don't know, there was actually a 3-year payment pause on federally held student debt. So for 3 years, anyone who held a federal student loan, which is about 98% of loan holders, didn't have to make a payment and no interest was charged on that debt. And so now that payment pause has been over for about a year. There was a 1-year kind of period where employees didn't necessarily have to make payments, in the sense you wouldn't get dinged or go into deferment or delinquency if you didn't make a payment. That is now over. So we're kind of in a place where, people are realizing, oh, I do have to make these, on average $400 a month payments. They're not going away. And this is a great way for companies to actually, we like to say, instead of talking the talk, walk the walk, and really help their employees with what is generally an employee's largest financial burden. So just some kind of high level stats here for you. I think if you want to go to the next slide. So on average, we like to say that about 1/3 of an employee base in general will have student debt. So this is across all companies in the States. Given there are 45 million Americans, about 160 million in the workforce. This is some pretty interesting information that came from CalNonprofits, a student loan survey. Within the nonprofit sector, you can see that 76% of respondents said they had a loan. That's more than double the national average. So in terms of what industries are affected by student debt, nonprofits, along with healthcare, are by far the 2 most affected. And so that's why we have found success in this space. And that's why we'd like to help a lot of organizations, just because the burden of debt among employees is so high and it's so vast. Kind of the more telling piece that I kind of took out of the survey was this kind of third bullet point, that 85% of people said that this would actually likely increase retention of the organization. So even if you don't hold debt, but you do work in the nonprofit space, you understand how significant the debt problem is and why benefits like this are very valuable. If you go to the next slide. So why not, give an employee a bonus? Why not give an employee a sign-on bonus or an annual bonus? This is kind of painting the picture as to why our benefit is very valuable to employees. So traditionally, any sort of compensation that goes through payroll, you get payroll tax, income tax, state, federal tax. With Highway, what we do is we actually move money directly from you, the company, into the employee's loan servicer outside of payroll, so that every dollar you contribute to the employee's loan goes directly into that loan. Not only can that employee not pocket the cash or do something else with it, but every dollar gets counted against their student debt. So in terms of kind of like power of the dollar and compensation terms, this is arguably, if not actually, the most powerful kind of compensation dollar you can give to an employee, more than a salary dollar, more than a bonus dollar that gets taxed at around 40%. So it is a very valuable, and these dollars add up. We listed 5250 because currently the benefit has a maximum of $5,250 per employee per year that you can contribute to that employee. As Jeff mentioned, a lot of companies don't actually use the maximum. Say about 60% of our clients actually only contribute about $100 a month to their employees' loans. But that is kind of just the scope of the benefit. If you want to jump to the next slide. So if a company is to work with Highway, how does it kind of work? Well, after you speak with myself or someone on our lovely sales team, we will hopefully get you up and running. And there are a few kind of steps. So one is we create your plan. So your plan really indicates who qualifies for the benefit. Is it everyone at the organization? Is it just certain people at the organization, certain roles? How much? Is it $50 a month? Is it $100 a month? And then third, are there any other kind of rules? So 50% of our clients actually institute some sort of rule. Let's call it a 10-year rule. If you're at the company for a year, maybe you get $50 a month. If you're there for 2 years, maybe you get $100 a month. Really helping companies incentivize employee retention and attraction. So once we determine your plan, we choose a go live date, and then basically you're up and running. So employees connect their accounts directly to Highway's portal, given their existing credentials, so their username and password of their existing loan. And then from there, as I mentioned before, it's really set it and forget it. And if you want, you want to attest, you can reach out to Jeff and Robert, as they're great clients. So hopefully it's been smooth sailing, as we like to say. I want to show you a couple images, just kind of how the employees do log in. So if you want to go to the next slide here. This is the portal. Your employees also will have full access to our suite of student debt tools. So this includes things like, payoff calculators, loan scenarios, loan refinancing options, income-driven repayment options. We also have a full content library of hundreds of articles that are basically targeted at helping employees understand more about their debt. We call it, getting financially fit. A lot of employees don't know that there are a lot of different ways to pay off their loan. Maybe refinancing isn't the right fit. There are 5 different, 5 different income-driven repayment plans. So we help decipher, what is the best option for each employee. No 2 financial situations are the same. No 2 student debt situations are the same. So our goal, in addition to, obviously the value of the dollars being contributed directly to their loans, our job is to really inform employees and get them financially fit about their debt. We want to arm them with as much information as we possibly can to make sure that they get out of debt as quickly as they can and as efficiently as they can based on their financial kind of life. So further, kind of a general question we get, and I'll just kind of address it up front, is this for private and public loans? So as I mentioned, about 97% of debt is federally held. However, we do also allow employees with private debt to enroll in the service. So it's any qualified loan in that employee's name. So whether you're working with Ed Financial, Nelnet, one of the federal loan holders, or you're working with a SoFi or Mohila, some private service, we got you covered. Any qualified loan in your employee's name. If you want to jump to the next slide, sorry. And it shows here you go. So this is when your employee will go actually connect their loan. And from there, again, they'll have access to the entire platform. If you want to jump to the next slide as well. So Highway, really what we are is we want to help companies retain and attract their talent pools. So we do that through ensuring adoption of the benefit. We have over 95% of eligible employees actually do sign up for the benefit. So when you think about benefits and the amount of employees who are actually using them, if 70% of your employees are actually eligible for the benefit, you can assume that about 70% of your employees will actually sign up. So adoption is huge for us. Second, we actually don't go through payroll. There are no integrations, no kind of extra timelines. We work directly with you and send the money via ACH directly into your employees' loans. As I mentioned, no 2 companies are the same, just as no employees have the same debt situation. So we allow you to be very customizable with the plan. We like to view ourselves as kind of a consultant, given that we've done this, hundreds of times with different companies. We like to learn a bit about your business to understand, is retention your goal? Then maybe we should institute a tenure-based plan. Is attraction your goal? Well, maybe we should focus on marketing the benefit more. And then really, again, just kind of arming your employees with as much information, utilizing our debt tools and resource center. So now, if you want to go to the next slide, the most important question: how much does this cost? So we charge $8 per connected employee per month. So we do not charge on a full, head count. We only charge you for those employees that are actually using the service. We generally have a $1,000 implementation fee because of our partnership with CalNonprofits. So members of CalNonprofits, we're actually going to waive the full implementation fee for anyone who works with Highway before February 1st. And then beyond that, because you are a member, you'll still get 50% off of your implementation fee going forward. So this is kind of it. Hopefully I covered as many potential questions as may come up. So we do have a question in the Q&A. I think, Robert, maybe we can open it up for more questions now. And if you prefer people write it in the chat, or if they just raise their hand, you let me know what's best.
Yeah, I think this is a great question. And this is something that we've addressed and have spoke with many of our members about. The question comes from Amy, and it's, can employees also contribute some of their pay to loans tax-free, kind of like a 401k, where both employees and employers contribute?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the answer is kind of. The direct answer is really no. So the tax-free dollars are the dollars that the company contributes to the loan. Those are the tax-free dollars. That's what Section 127 is all about. And what we feel, again, we're consultants. We're here to kind of explain the rules and laws to make sure that you're rolling this benefit out compliantly. So for student loan repayment as a benefit, the only tax-free dollars are the dollars contributed directly to the employee's loan from the company via a service like Highway.
Yeah, and I'll follow up there. There is another, we'll call it a scheme or a program, where folks, if they are unable to contribute, say that they're really burdened by their student debt and they're not able to contribute to their 401k, there is a separate program that I can send up some information about in the resources following this presentation, where an employer is able to match the payments that someone would be making to their student debt into someone's 401k. Totally different program, but also an option to help your employees.
So we actually offer that service as well, Robert. Yeah, there you go. So just primed me up for it. So that's called Secure Act. That was a rule that came about with part of Secure Act 2.0, which came about 2 years ago. It actually went live Jan 1 of this year. So we actually do work with some companies who want to basically say, hey, 20% of my employees can't contribute to a 401k. Can we count their student debt payments as the trigger to release the match? And so what we do at Highway is, again, your employees, the sign-up process is very similar. Your employees go, enter in their student loan credentials. That allows Highway to see do they have a qualified loan in their name? Have they made a payment? And then we can help you kind of provide that program to your employees. So we'd be happy to discuss that with you as well.
That's great. Thanks for the clarification around that, Mick. The next question is something that I think a lot of us are dealing with right now. And the question comes from Heather, and it is, can these still be contributed even for loans currently suspended in the SAVE program? And what Heather is speaking about is those of us that are enrolled in public service loan forgiveness and then the SAVE program since July, because of legal arbitration or battles that are going on right now, everyone is in forbearance who's on the SAVE program. And so the question is, can these dollars still make it into those loans? And as someone myself who is enrolled in the SAVE program and is in forbearance, I can tell you from my personal experience that the dollars are still going in and knocking off my balance. So Mick, if you want to maybe follow up on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm also enrolled in the SAVE program. Unfortunately, because it's my company, I can't participate in Highway. But Robert, you kind of nailed it there. So yes, the answer is yes. And as Robert mentioned, every dollar you contribute, chips away directly at that employee's principal. So this is actually, I would argue, better dollars, because instead of just money going to the interest payments, the money is going to the principal, chipping away at the duration of the loan, and it's going to eventually save the employee much more in future interest payments. So the answer is yes, and Robert is the living example of it.
Yeah, it's really reassuring and helpful to know that even despite being in forbearance, the money coming from Highway is still helping me pay off my loan. It's a feature that I find really helpful, and I'm thankful for. The next question comes from Kelly, and it's, are there any issues around equity resentment from staff who do not have student loans? Fair question.
Naturally, that may occur. I think, Kelly, a really interesting piece is if you go back to or take a look at the survey that CalNonprofits did around student debt. So about, again, 76% of employees have student debt. 85% of employees said that this would likely increase retention at the company. So more than those who hold debt view this benefit as a net positive to their place of work, which kind of answers the question. Every now and then that question comes up. But really, I think the thing to focus on is, even if you don't have debt, people within the organization view this as a good net positive. And then, obviously not all employees are eligible for all benefits, whether it's health, vision, dental, pet insurance, whatever it is. But in terms of most impactful and highest utilization on the fringe benefit space, so outside of health and kind of 401k, this is the highest utilized benefit, just given the severe number of people that have student debt.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, Mick, particularly around the idea that, all of our companies, or many of them, offer a variety of benefits, and not everyone is eligible or taking advantage of all of those benefits. So in the same vein, this falls into that category. The next question is from Kelly, or I'm sorry, it's from an anonymous attendee. And this is a good question. This is a question that we had when we first implemented with Highway. Is the $8 on top of what the organization would be paying, does that go to the employee? Is the employee paying that, or does the company or organization pay that?
Yeah, so that is Highway's, that is our take, if you will, or our cost of doing business. We charge the company, not the employee. And I should also clarify, if you have under 25 people using the service, so not 25 total employees, but under 25 end users, we just charge you a flat rate of $200 a month. So that charge goes, you're right, it is to the company, not to the employee.
That's great. Super helpful there. The next question is from Courtney. Is there an option for the employee's spouse to participate in the program if the employee doesn't have a student loan? Really interesting question there.
Not yet. So we, as a company, are very close with the senators and Congress people who are kind of pushing to expand the scope of this benefit. Two of those things. One is Parent Plus loans. So that's a loan that a parent takes out on behalf of their child. There are about 4 million Parent Plus loan holders in the country. Currently, that is not eligible for the benefit. Additionally, we would like to expand it for spousal. That currently also not eligible for the benefit. It's the current eligibility requirements are qualified education loans in that employee's name. And so as part of what we do at Highway, again, is we make sure that employees, or companies rather, roll this benefit out compliantly. So we ensure that, it's not me paying off my sister's or brother's loan while I'm at the company. So you can ensure that you as a company are rolling this out above board. And that is kind of part of why we exist and what we do.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. The next question is, what does pricing look like per participant if you are not a CalNonprofits member? And I think maybe there's two different probably ways to address this, and it might be the end user fee of $8 or the implementation fee. So Mick, I'll let you.
Yeah, it's implementation.
Add some clarity there.
Yeah, it's implementation fee. So you will pay a full implementation fee if you are not a CalNonprofits member.
And I'll also just plug To become a CalNonprofits member, we have a sliding scale based on your budget. We make it really easy to join CalNonprofits. And my suspicion is that if you were to join CalNonprofits, you would easily take advantage or make back that implementation fee. So just another great reason to join CalNonprofits, along with the myriad of other membership benefits that we do offer. The next question is from Amy. Hey, Amy. Does Highway advise employees on public service loan forgiveness too? This is a great question because the program, is very complicated. Things are changing. Lots of changes have occurred in the last year. We continue to see a lot of uncertainty in that space. But Mick, what's your take on advising around the PSLF program?
Yeah, so Amy, we have a lot of content about PSLF and income-driven repayment. So we view ourselves as kind of content or education machines when it comes to all things student debt. In terms of specific financial advice or like financial advising, we don't kind of become a fiduciary or a financial advisor to the employees, but we do offer them a ton of content, resources, et cetera. We also do, and I believe CalNonprofits does as well, have kind of a partner for specifically PSLF applications. It's actually, we have the same partner. So if that is something your employees do want to go after, we do kind of walk them through the process of how it works. I'll let you know that generally speaking, you probably know that only around 3% of applications a year are actually granted in the PSLF space. So that's just kind of like I would call it a fun fact, but it's not that fun. It's an unfun reality about PSLF.
Next question comes from Karen. If you have only one employee, does it cost $200 per month, or then is it $8?
So if you do have one employee using the service, it is $200 a month. So anything under 25 employees using the service is just $200 per month. We generally find, if just to kind of set context, when you have around 4 people using the service is when a lot of companies start to work with Highway. That's when people really feel, the value is there. But we also do have tons of companies that only have 1 or 2 people using the service.
That's great. Thanks, Mick. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but if folks would like to add anything or add it into the Q&A box or the chat, we'd be happy to answer those. I also just wanted to plug that with the recording of this webinar, I'll be sending out our student debt report, which does have a lot of information and action steps that folks can take in order to apply for the PSLF program, steps that employers can take to support their employees, this being one of them. Like Mick said, 85% of our respondents said that if their employer was going to offer a student loan repayment program, it would contribute to their ability to remain in the sector. So this feature, this program, I think is really impactful and something that I know that I'm really grateful for. And I know that the folks on our team that hold student debt feel really positively about working with Highway and the way that it's impacting their financials. Mick, any follow-up thoughts or questions that you usually typically see or hear from folks? I got you on mute.
There we go. Sorry about that. These are these are great questions. These are kind of the high level ones that usually come through. Who qualifies? Can Parent Plus loans or spouses contribute as well? So I think the questions are pretty much answered. I just want to reiterate that we are very committed and understand the pain of student debt, specifically within the nonprofit space. So we're really excited to work with CalNonprofits, obviously, and then hopefully work with as many of your members as possible. I think if you do have any questions, we'd love to at least, say hello. Please reach out to us. We'll send a follow-up email after this that includes really all the high-level information that we walked through. But we would love to work with all of your organizations and at least have a conversation to answer any other questions that may come up. We can walk through the platform and all that in more detail. So please reach out.
Yeah, I think as a new program like this, I think it's important to reach out and really have the conversation. I know that when we initially were researching partners to work with, Highway was obviously the best choice for us, but the conversations that we had with Mixed Team really helped us understand both how the program works, the impact that it has for employees, and also the benefit that it has for the employer as far as being tax deductible, right? So that, I think that's another really important thing to underscore.
I'll say one more thing, Robert. Sorry.
No, go for it.
Yeah, generally speaking, another thing that we kind of believe in as an organization is that, this shouldn't be a benefit that's only available to, Fortune 500 companies. So we really have found that, it's part of our mission to be able to help companies of all sizes. We have 4-person companies and we have 10,000-person companies and everything in between. So when it comes to working with small and medium-sized companies, we really prioritize those companies. It's just part of our mission, and we understand that this should be a benefit that everyone should be able to take advantage of, regardless of your size.
Yeah, and I'll follow up there and echo that. Despite Mick and Highway working with lots of big, large enterprise companies, their ability to be responsive to us, have conversations that help us understand the program was really helpful to get us on board and get things going here. So I would really advise anyone, if they're interested in learning more or have any questions, reaching out to us at CalNonprofits or Mick over at Highway Benefits. Starting that conversation is really important, and I think the best way to get going. Even if you have some uncertainty, understanding the options that you have, and maybe it's something that you'll implement down the road when you have more employees. But I think getting this started, having it top of mind will be more and more important, because this is an issue that is really affecting our sector as well as the broader community. And programs like these make a big impact on the ability of student loan holders to participate, in their daily lives. I know for me, someone who's taking advantage of this program, it alleviates some of the stress that I know that we all feel. The impact of a student loan, carrying debt can be really stressful, can impact the opportunities and chances you have to, say, purchase a home or make big life decisions. So having repayment programs like these are really great ways to retain employees, make people feel better, safe, and provide some security around this uncertain topic that we're all dealing with. Mick, any other thoughts?
Took the words out of my mouth, Robert. Yeah.
Well, we've got a little bit of time, but I do want to plug a couple of our upcoming events before we give you some time back today. On Tuesday, January 14th, we have the California Policy Forum, and this is going to be a webinar with lobbyists. It's an AMA. If you're not a Reddit user, it's an Ask Me Anything. And this will be an opportunity for you to engage with lobbyists from Capitol Hill or the Capitol in Sacramento. It will be a great opportunity to learn how lobbying works, what you can do as a nonprofit, as a 501c3, and maybe understand the difference between a 501c3 and a 501c4. The second event that I wanted to plug is on Wednesday, January 22nd. And this is Public Trust in Nonprofits and Philanthropy. We'll be doing this in partnership with several of the larger national organizations that we work with. And this will be a great opportunity to understand the ways that nonprofits are interacting in the broader community, how folks are feeling about nonprofits and philanthropy, and a nice way to engage with the national scope of nonprofits. If there aren't any other questions, and I don't see them in the chat, feel free to follow up with either one of us. Like I said, everyone will be receiving a recording of this event. And in addition to that, like I said, I'm going to include our student debt report, which has it has some great action steps that you can take, both as an employee and also as an employer, but also if you're interested in joining us in the advocacy front. There's a lot of coalitions and groups that are working right now. I know Mick, is in conversation with you. Who are you in conversation with yesterday?
In DC?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're pretty tight with the two senators, one specifically who's kind of pushing to expand the scope, but Senator Warner's office out of Virginia. So we speak with them a lot.
Yeah.
And also Senator or Congressman Peters, who's covers San Diego and La Jolla area here in California. He's the proponent on the House side for our benefit.
So just to kind of follow on there, this is a group effort. This is something that affects us all in the nonprofit sector and broadly society at large, and is an area that you can get involved in. There are coalitions to join. There are conversations to be had with your elected officials. And then there are also programs like this to take advantage of. So Mick, we really appreciate you having you on today. Look forward to continue working with you, and appreciate all the attendees for joining us. We look forward to hearing any questions that you have, starting conversations. And once again, feel free to reach out. We're here to support you, as is Highway. And we look forward to continuing this partnership and also continuing to serve the nonprofit industry as a whole.